Shannon Rouillard, who has worked with the USGA for more than 13 years, most recently as the Senior Director of Championships, namely the US Women's Open and US Senior Women's Open. And before heading to the USGA, Rouillard was the head coach of the University of Oregon's women's golf team for 8 years. So with that, I am so pleased to welcome Shannon onto our guest here. We are live from the US Women's Open, just off the beautiful 18th fairway here at Pebble. Shannon, wonderful to see you. Congratulations on this moment, on this week. I know a lot of hard work and preparation has been done to get this course ready for the women, but just talk us through just the feelings of this moment arriving.
It's absolutely spectacular. As you mentioned, we've been looking forward to this since 2017, and I'm sure every player has had this on their calendar since that announcement. It just so happened that right after that announcement, I actually had a family trip planned to the area. So I told my husband and my son, I said, let's just hop down to Pebble Beach and go in and see the superintendent and take a loop around. So the energy has just continued to build since 2017, and we're just so excited to be here this week in preparation for the championship in just a few short days.
There was a piece that aired, and you were talking about the preparation for this week, and you got quite emotional in it. I was just wondering where that emotion came from.
You know, I've played in a number of USGA championships and have been fortunate to qualify for the Women's Open back in 1999. So even prior to coming to the USGA, I've always had an affinity for the USGA and its championships because, you know, once you qualify, you're in an elite class, no matter what championship you're qualifying for. So to have the opportunity to come to the USGA, for them to have the confidence in me to conduct this championship, it really touches me each and every year. So I feel very fortunate.
What are the biggest challenges for you when you come and set up a golf course for the first time?
You know, we have to just look at the whole picture, just everything holistically. And obviously with the Women's Open, we got to look at everything from our fairway widths, obviously, to the tees that we're using. Coming to these relevant U.S. Open golf courses, we need to be really cognizant of the tees that we're using. We are using the men's tee where the U.S. Open was played on the second hole, but we're playing that as a par 5 this week. But it's also worth noting that we played it as a par 5 in our first 3 U.S. Opens here. So there's a lot of inputs that go into putting this puzzle together that make up the setup for the Women's Open.
Shannon, this sort of reminds me a little bit of the 2019 Augusta National Women's Amateur, in that it's a golf course that golf fans at home are so intimately familiar with, even if they've never been here. And so how do you strike the balance between putting on a championship where the women are playing a course that's familiar and it's played in a familiar way to the men, but then also it's unique in that obviously the women are different?
Right. I think, you know, we're all interested to see how the women play Pebble Beach, including myself. You know, we put together this test and what we think is going to be the right test, but we really don't know at a new venue like this. But what we do have is we have human resources. I have individuals that I've counted on and talked to. You know, I've spoke to Jason Gore, you know, right away because he's played here many times. He, again, was so gracious in calling Gary Woodland and said, hey, tell me about your final round. What clubs did you use? Tell me about that round. I've spoken to our new Senior Director of Player Relations, Scott Langley. He's played here countless times, too. He was low amateur one year back in 2010. In addition, Casey Boynes, who's been a longtime caddy here, 40-plus years, saying, hey, you've been out here, you know this course better than anybody else. What does it take to play well here at Pebble Beach? And obviously the data that we have available to us, the fairway lines, as well as you know, knowing statistics on how hard each of these holes play. Again, going back to all these different inputs in putting them together to make the Women's Open setup.
And looking at the challenge that they will face this week, I know you've sort of narrowed the fairways. I know a big sort of goal of setting this course up was to give the women a very similar challenge to what the men face. How have you gone about sort of creating that experience for the women this week?
Sure. You know, we looked at the resort widths, but we also had at our fingertips the fairway widths from the 2019 U.S. Open. And we really just kind of put them together. As you mentioned, we really focus our narrowing plan on the drive zone and other landing areas to figure out what was really the right prescription for the women. There are some fairways that are exactly the same as 2019. A few of those are holes 2, holes 4, and holes 14. But we also made some unique adjustments to holes 5, 6, and 11 as well.
And with the forecasted winds later on this week, I'm just wondering how that's going to impact your setup. And Paige McKenzie was just talking about how there's a forward tee at number 2. I'm wondering if we're going to see any forward tees on any par 4s or any of the other par 5s that will make going for the green more likely for some of these women.
Yeah, I think the second hole is a great example. We have seen from some of our practice round data already that there are a select number of players that can already go for hole 2 into. But we certainly are considering moving that tee up a little more forward so that there's a greater percentage of players that may be able to go for that green. We see that as a big risk-reward hole with just the nature of that putting green, how long and skinny it is, and the bunkers that surround that green.
I'm wondering about the second shot at 6 as well. That's a difficult shot. It's blind, first of all, and second of all, if you've got a long club in there to get it up and over that hill. So, what sort of do you anticipate that the women are going to be going for that green in 2? And will you move the tee up there? What yardage are you going to play the 6th hole?
Yeah, right now we're just under 500 yards, and again, depending on the wind, we could possibly see that go up a little further, bring more of the bunker complex on the left in play, and give them an opportunity to go for that green.
Yeah, there it is right there. A spectacular hole. And then the rough side, and pardon me if you've mentioned this, but the height that you're going to cut the rough at is going to be what?
Right now we're topping it off at 3 inches around the fairways.
Gotcha.
Shannon, was there one hole in particular that gave you a lot of angst, that you spent a lot of time mulling over what the strategy is?
Yeah, I mean, it probably is important to you all, the 9th hole. The 9th hole is just going to be a beast. But you know what? It's a beast for the men, too. When we go back and look at the statistics from 2019, that was the #1 hardest hole at that U.S. Open. So I would certainly anticipate a similar outcome as well for the women. But the 9th hole for sure. Just the nature of the terrain, the architecture there, the nature of the putting green, the approach, it doesn't lend to hopping the ball up with that slight elevation. And that's a big tee shot. Although, in what we've seen thus far, there are players that are able to get it down to the bottom of that hill. But we're also seeing players that are back up on the plateau, too. So I think we're going to see a wide variety of shots there.
And just finally, Shannon, I mean, you have been a part of many championships. You've set up many iconic courses. But, what makes must-watch TV? It's a U.S. Women's Open at Pebble Beach on primetime TV. How much do you think, what will Pebble do you think, this week to elevate the women's game on a platform that we've never seen before?
I mean, let's face it, it already has. Look at all of the enthusiasm and media coverage that just coming to Pebble, and we haven't even hit our first tee shot yet. It's going to take the women's game, women's golf, to another level. And we're just really excited for what the future is going to hold, especially with 3 more Women's Opens already on the docket.
That's right. I mean, Shannon, the course looks magnificent. As always, you've done a wonderful job. So thank you so much for your time. Really insightful stuff indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.